When humans first reached the stars, they did not find welcome. They found control. The galactic Concord, a union of advanced alien civilizations, had already ruled space for thousands of years. They saw Earth as a new but dangerous spark in their carefully balanced galaxy. Humans were fast learners, creative thinkers, but also emotional, unpredictable, and often aggressive. The Concord believed Earth would eventually cause chaos, so they acted quickly. Under the name of peace, they forced a treaty upon Earth, a treaty that came to be known even by its defenders as the Treaty of Chains. It disarmed Earth's militaries, broke down its fleets into pieces too small to resist, and bound humanity to strict rules. Earth could not build warships, could not train soldiers, could not even explore beyond certain borders. In return, the Concord promised safety, trade, and a seat, though a very low one, at the table of galactic diplomacy. Earth was told it would be respected as a cultural archive and agricultural supplier. Its job was to grow food, share art, and stay quiet. At first, the people of Earth were shocked, then ashamed, and finally angry, but they hid it. They signed the treaty. Their leaders shook hands and gave smiles. They sent their best scientists and thinkers to the Concord's capital, hoping to prove their worth through peace. For decades, humanity played the role the galaxy had chosen for them. Earth cities became models of clean energy and cultural preservation. Its outer colonies focused on growing food for trade. Human media promoted diplomacy. Schools taught the value of cooperation. Outwardly, humanity seemed to accept its role in the great galactic system. But deep within Earth, something else was growing. Even while following every rule, humans did not stop learning. Hidden beneath research stations and disguised among trade ships, they studied everything the galaxy had to offer. They observed alien ships and reverse-engineered parts. They mapped space beyond the borders they were told never to cross. They built quiet alliances with fringe species the Concord often ignored. And in quiet labs under Earth's surface, they worked on technology the Concord had never seen. All of it was secret. All of it was careful. No one outside humanity knew. Because Earth had made a decision, one spoken only in whispers at first. We will never be caught unprepared again. Over the years, the Concord relaxed its watch. Humanity had not rebelled. They had not resisted. Their anger, the Concord believed, had faded. And yet, in the minds of human leaders and hidden strategists, the anger had not faded, it had transformed. It had become focus, determination, patience. Children born after the treaty were raised to know both peace and history. They were told stories of what Earth had lost and what it must someday protect, not through blind violence, but through readiness. Though their uniforms looked like those of scientists and diplomats, many were trained in secret arts. Encryption, engineering, tactics, even ancient martial strategies long thought forgotten. Earth had become a garden, yes, but one that hid iron beneath its soil. The Concord, busy with its own power struggles, never looked too closely. They saw what they wanted to see: a peaceful planet, a quiet people, a small voice in a galaxy of giants. And so year by year they let their guard fall lower. Reports about humanity's hidden movements were dismissed as fear-mongering. A few alien observers warned that humans were too quiet, too calm, but they were ignored. After all, it had been over 70 years. Surely the fire in humanity's heart had gone out. But the fire had not gone out. It had simply gone cold. Cold fire does not rage. It waits. And so, 73 years after the Treaty of Chains was signed in a grand chamber under Concord law, Earth stood as a model of restraint. Its art was respected, its food was praised, and its people smiled when the galaxy looked their way. But behind that smile was memory. Not of hate, but of purpose. The purpose to never again let their fate be decided by others. The purpose to be ready, not to destroy, but to rise when the moment came. And that moment was coming. A signal waited in silence, buried in deep space, to be activated if ever humanity was wronged again. In that moment, restraint would end, not with rage, but with precision. and the galaxy would learn what Earth had become while no one was watching. For 73 years, the Treaty of Chains kept humanity quiet, their strength hidden, their anger buried under layers of obedience and careful smiles. But all it took was one moment, one act of cruelty, to shatter the illusion of peace. That moment came when the Kalari Dominion, a proud and ruthless species known for its hunger for conquest, invaded Gaia Station. Gaia was a civilian outpost on the outer edge of Earth's allowed colonial zone, a place of science, farming, and peaceful exchange. It had no weapons, no defenses, and no warning. Under the treaty, Gaia Station had no right to defend itself. And so when Kalari warships appeared in its skies, there was nothing the people could do. The attack was swift and merciless. In a matter of hours, over 30,000 human lives were lost. Farmers, scientists, children. The galaxy watched, with uneasy silence. Earth cried out for justice. Their representatives went before the conquered High Council and demanded answers. But the council, weighed down by politics, tradition, and old fears of human anger, responded with weakness. They fined the Kalari Dominion. A trade sanction was issued. No arrests were made. No trials were held. The Kalari called it a misunderstanding. Earth was told to move on, for the sake of galactic peace. But this time, humanity did not nod and obey. Instead, they vanished. In the weeks that followed, strange things began to happen. Concord patrols attempting to contact Earth received no reply. Diplomatic messages went unanswered. Trade routes that had once been busy with human cargo ships became empty. Surveillance satellites near Sol, the system that held Earth, reported interference, then silence. Space stations near human colonies began to lose communication. Concord embassies on Earth sent distress calls, claiming their hosts had disappeared overnight. No violence, no noise, just nothing. Earth had simply gone dark, as if the whole species had stepped behind a curtain and closed it tightly. The galaxy had grown used to humans always being there, always speaking, trading, offering art and science, asking for little, demanding even less. Now their absence was louder than any protest. Panic quietly spread through the Concord ranks. Investigations were launched, but those who entered human space never returned a report. Some ships vanished completely. Others reappeared weeks later, empty, drifting, all systems wiped clean. Something had changed. Something had awakened. And the silence was no longer peaceful. It was a warning. The Kalari Dominion, proud of their victory at Gaia and unrepentant, laughed at the concern. They called humanity cowards who had finally broken under pressure. They claimed Earth had fled from the galaxy, ashamed and defeated. But the older species, those who remembered Earth's early years in the conquered, were not so quick to dismiss the silence. They remembered the fire that once burned behind human diplomacy. They remembered stories of old Earth wars, of survival, against impossible odds, of a species that had turned every defeat into a lesson, every loss into strength. And now, with no response from Earth, they began to fear those lessons had not been forgotten, only hidden. Quiet meetings were held in the upper chambers of conquered government. What if humanity was not retreating, but preparing? Then came the signal. It was short, only 2 seconds. A frequency never used in conquered communication. It played once across the edges of known space. Just a whisper, almost like a test. But every species heard it. And though no words were spoken, every translator translated the same phrase. The cost has been measured. After that, the silence deepened. Earth sent no demands, no threats. But their message had been made clear, not through volume, but through absence. Like a city that suddenly falls quiet before a storm hits, the galaxy began to feel a pressure building in the air. Planets that once traded freely with Earth now watched their skies. Some began fortifying their borders, unsure of what was coming. Others sent messages of regret, of apology, begging for dialogue, but none were answered, and so the conquered waited. They waited for news from deep space patrols that never returned. They waited for Earth to speak again, to negotiate, to show the same restraint they always had. But the galaxy had changed. Earth had changed. For nearly a century, humans had followed the rules. They had accepted the leash, accepted the loss, accepted silence in exchange for survival. But Gaia Station had been the final line, and the Kalari had crossed it. Not just by killing civilians, but by exposing the truth that the Concord had never truly protected them. Now the leash was gone, and in its place was quiet fury, calm, calculated, patient, and ready. No one could see into Sul anymore. The old satellite feeds had gone black. The stargates that once connected Earth to the Concord flickered offline, controlled now by systems no one else could access. The humans had locked their doors, and whatever they were building behind them, it was not for peace talks. The Kalari, still blind in their pride, began preparing for another strike, hoping to push Earth into open war and crush them once and for all. But they had already made a fatal mistake. They had confused silence with surrender. And the rest of the galaxy was beginning to understand the truth. Humanity was not gone. They were waiting for the right moment to return. 17 months after Gaia Station fell and humanity vanished behind the curtain of silence, the galaxy continued to whisper in fear. Some believed Earth had withdrawn forever. Others feared something worse was coming. Those fears became real when a Kalari battlecruiser disappeared while patrolling near the Perseus Rift, a vast and empty stretch of space on the border of what was once considered human territory. At first, the Concord dismissed it as an accident, engine failure perhaps. But when a second Kalari ship vanished in the same region without a distress call or signal, they sent a task force to investigate. What the Concord ships found chilled even the most battle-hardened officers. Scattered in the void were pieces of hull metal twisted by energy weapons that left no trace in known records. Power cores had been cleanly removed and escape pods floated unopened. No survivors, no signs of life. But the most shocking discovery came from a shattered recording unit that had managed to survive. In the recovered footage, dark shapes moved through the stars, silent and sharp, cutting through Kalari cruisers like blades through paper. These were not the old human ships the Concord remembered. These were something new, sleek, angular, and eerily quiet. They made no attempt to communicate. They did not hesitate. Their strikes were precise, their tactics cruelly effective. Every move was made with the calm focus of a hunter reclaiming lost ground. They didn't fight to escape or defend. They fought to punish. The footage caused alarm throughout the Concord. Council. Emergency meetings were held and debates turned into arguments as panic spread. Earth had broken its silence, but not with words, with power. The Concord attempted to respond with force, sending larger fleets to secure the Perseus Rift, but those fleets never returned. Some ships sent final, frantic messages, strange shadows approaching fast, systems shutting down without warning, weapon locks failing. Then, silence again. In the following weeks, conquered colonies near the border reported mysterious power outages, sensor blackouts, and ghost signals. They were being watched, and they knew it. And now, it was clear that, whatever humanity had become, it was no longer interested in being ignored. For 70 years, Earth had played the obedient role. But behind that performance, they had not rested. While the conquered saw only farms and songs, Earth was building in secret, hidden in asteroid fields, on rogue planets, and deep beneath ice-covered moons. They had created warships the galaxy had never seen. They studied alien designs, learned from every known battle, and trained soldiers not for survival, but for absolute control. Their technology combined the best of what the galaxy had to offer with a level of discipline no one thought humans could maintain. They had invented new kinds of energy weapons, stealth drives that bent light, AI battle networks that coordinated entire fleets with terrifying silence. And now they were using them. Every attempt to intercept human ships failed. Conquered weapons missed their targets. Human counterstrikes came from impossible angles. Their fleet formations moved like one mind, striking hard, vanishing before a counterattack could even begin. More than once, entire planets woke to find Concord military outposts abandoned, their weapons taken, their leadership missing. No public announcements were made by Earth. No demands, no broadcasts. They simply acted. The galaxy was used to diplomacy and warnings. This was neither. It was a storm with no thunder, only lightning. Behind the scenes, some Concord species begged for peace, sending secret messages to former human contacts. Others prepared for war, though few truly believed they could win. Because this new version of humanity wasn't just powerful, it was patient, calculated, and fully aware of the fear it inspired. They were no longer the emotional, unstable race the conquered had once feared. They had become something worse in the eyes of their enemies, focused. The Kalari, whose actions had triggered the return of Earth's power, now faced the consequences. Their fleets shrank with each passing month. Convoys disappeared, colonies went silent. Some ships returned, damaged but untouched by weapons, with entire crews missing and no memory of what had happened. Earth was sending a message, not just through destruction, but through control. They had not come to burn the galaxy, they had come to remind it. The leash that had once bound them was broken. Not torn apart in rage, but carefully removed when it no longer served its purpose. Earth had waited for the right moment, learned every rule, studied every weakness. And when the galaxy turned its back after Gaia Station, they used that moment to rise without being seen. The galaxy had thought the Treaty of Chains had kept humanity down. What they hadn't realized was that it had taught humanity something even more dangerous: how to play a long game. Now the rules no longer mattered, and the hunters had returned. In just 5 years after their return, humanity became the force that shook the entire galactic Concord from its foundations. What had once been a proud and stable alliance began to splinter under the weight of human precision and unspoken threats. Earth's fleets no longer acted as a united empire under one flag, but as something even more difficult to defeat: autonomous war clans, each moving with the same ruthless coordination, but using different strategies and strengths. These fleets operated like ancient tribal legions reborn through machines, each with its own banner, each with its own code, but all following the same hidden command. Their ships did not shine with gold or flash with ceremony. They were dark, sharp-edged, and frighteningly quiet. They moved through space like shadows made of steel, guided by command vessels powered by advanced AI systems. These command ships never broadcasted signals or warnings. They did not ask for surrender before attacking, but they always left the option open after. Drones, numberless and fast, struck like electric storms, disabling shields and weapons before Marines arrived. These human Marines were not ordinary soldiers. They were enhanced in body and mind, trained from youth in environments that mirrored the harshest alien worlds, and designed to win not through numbers, but through complete control. When they entered a station, the fight was over within minutes. They did not destroy everything. They disabled, captured, and disappeared before reinforcements could respond. And yet, even in the middle of destruction, humanity's voice remained strangely calm. In every battle they offered a message: surrender, and you will be spared. It was not a threat shouted across battlefields. It was a simple truth, spoken softly after the shooting stopped. They told their enemies, "You chained us to preserve peace. Now we show you what we were capable of all along. Choose peace, or see why restraint was a gift." That message was never repeated more than once because it never had to be. Some planets listened. They lowered their defenses and opened their gates, expecting punishment but receiving order instead. Human administrators restored systems, repaired infrastructure, and left within days, taking nothing but information. Those who surrendered were spared, and word spread fast. But some leaders resisted. Some still believed they could fight the old Earth, the one they remembered from the treaty days. Those planets did not surrender, and slowly they vanished. Sometimes their signals went dark. Their cities burned from orbit. Sometimes their worlds remained intact, but silent. No distress calls, no traffic, no survivors. No one knew which punishment would come, but everyone understood the meaning. The conquered tried to maintain control, but its members now argued, constantly. Some wanted to join Earth before it was too late. Others wanted to prepare for war, though their weapons had already proven useless. Some still believed Earth would stop if offered apology. But it was far too late for that. The truth was harder to accept. Humanity had not changed into something terrible. They had always been this way. Even before space travel, their history was filled with wars, revolutions, and survival against impossible odds. But when the Treaty of Chains was signed, Earth had made a choice, to hide their fire and show only light. For decades, the galaxy believed that choice was submission. Now they saw it had been restraint, a kindness, a warning left unspoken. And now that kindness was gone. Not because humanity hated the galaxy, but because the galaxy had broken the one rule humans had silently asked for. Do not hurt what we protect. When Gaia Station fell, that rule was shattered, and so was the peace every Concord fleet sent to stop the war clans failed. Human tactics shifted too quickly. No two battles were fought the same way. One fleet might use stealth, another sheer speed, another confusion and misinformation. The Concord's proudest commanders were defeated by enemies who never spoke, never showed emotion, never gave them the chance to adapt. And still Earth said nothing in public. No speeches, no council addresses. They let the galaxy learn its lesson the hard way. The fire they had hidden for so long was now burning across the stars, and no one could stop it. But it was not wild. It was focused. It did not consume everything. Only those who refused to listen. And so, fear turned to respect. Respect turned to quiet acceptance. Some species began to send envoys not to the Concord, but directly to human war clans, offering peace, resources, or alliance. The war clans did not always respond, but when they did, they offered terms far fairer than the Conquered ever had. Because Earth did not want to rule the galaxy. They simply wanted it to understand they had chosen peace before, but it was not weakness. It was mercy. Now, with their restraint gone, the galaxy could finally see them for what they had always been, not monsters, not saviors, but survivors who had mastered the art of waiting. And when the time came, they had not returned to ask for justice. They had come to deliver it. The Conquered Hall, once the proud center of galactic law and unity, now stood in ruins. Its towers were scorched and hollow, the great banners of the old alliance torn by fire and wind. The chamber where treaties were once signed and alliances forged now echoed with silence, broken only by the low hum of emergency lights. In this place, where humanity had once been given a low seat and bound by laws meant to contain them, now stood Commander Alina Grayson, a name unknown to most before the war, now spoken with respect and caution across the stars. She walked into the hall not as a representative begging for peace, but as a leader carrying it on her terms. Her uniform was plain, her steps steady, and her face calm. Behind her stood no army, no weapons. None were needed. Every leader in the room, from the fractured members of the Conquered to the smaller systems that had watched from afar, knew Earth could crush what remained if it wanted to. But it hadn't. And that silence spoke louder than war. Alina stood before them and spoke clearly, not in anger but with weight that settled in every corner of the room. "We do not seek dominance," she said, her voice firm but level. "We seek balance, but never again will humanity be leashed. You taught, Cosphere. We returned with understanding and consequence." There was no applause, no challenge, only quiet nods and eyes that refused to meet hers. The galaxy had been changed, not just by battles but by realization. For too long they had viewed humans as creatures of emotion and chaos, as beings who needed control to be safe. Now, they understood. Humanity had not risen because it wanted power. It had risen because it had been betrayed. And in response, it had reshaped itself into something the galaxy had never seen. A force not of destruction, but of unstoppable will. In the days that followed, talks began, not of surrender, but of something new. Earth did not demand territory. It did not punish those who had once stood against it. Instead, it offered structure, a system of mutual respect and shared defense, one not ruled by fear, but by deterrence. Under this new accord, no single species could enforce peace alone, and no planet would be left defenseless by law. Each world would maintain the right to defend its people, and each would be held accountable not by force but by collective judgment. It was not perfect, but it was real. And for the first time in centuries, the galaxy agreed not because it had to, but because it finally understood the cost of ignoring what it thought it could control. Humanity now stood not at the edge of the council floor, but in the center, equal, respected, and feared in the way a storm cloud is feared. Not because it always brings ruin, but because it can. Peace returned, but not like before. This was not a piece of comfort or illusion. It was a peace forged in fire, shaped by hard lessons, and watched over by quiet ships that still moved unseen at the edge of space. Every species remembered the day Earth stopped asking for permission. They remembered the silence before the storm, the speed of the strikes, the precision of the fleets, and the discipline of a people who had waited generations to be heard. The new accord was written not just in ink, but in memory. And across every corner of known space, from the shining cities of the conquered to the smallest moons at the edge of forgotten systems, children were taught a story of a world once held down, of a people who chose patience over rage, and of a day when restraint ended not in revenge but in transformation. That story did not end in war nor in conquest. It ended with understanding. Because when the galaxy looked into the eyes of Commander Alina Grayson, it did not see vengeance. It saw clarity, the kind that comes only after loss, and the strength that comes only from having been pushed too far, too often. Humanity had not become monsters. They had simply become everything the galaxy thought they couldn't. And in doing so, they had rewritten their place among the stars. No longer the forgotten, no longer the watched. They were now the watchers, and the galaxy would never forget. The day the humans returned, not with rage but with purpose, the day human restraint ended, the galaxy met a war it would never dare to invite again.